Hello friends. We will discuss about the administrative changes after 1858's continued part uh, of chapter 7. This is changes in the army. So the Indian army was carefully reorganized after 1858, most of all to prevent the recurrence of another. So most of all to prevent the recurrence of another revolt. The rulers had seen that their Bevants means Sangin were the only secure foundation of their rule. Several steps taken to minimize, if not completely eliminate the capacity of Indian soldiers to revolt. Firstly, the domination of the army by its European branch was carefully guaranteed. Again, I repeat, the Indian army was carefully reorganized after 1858, most of all to prevent the recurrence of another revolt. The rulers had seen that their bayonets were only secure foundation of their rule. मीन्स दे आर मतलब रूलर सोच रहे थे कि जो उनके जो सेना में जो संदिग्ध वो संगीन वो हैं मतलब स्ट्रॉन्ग जो मैन हैं वो सिर्फ उनके 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 रेन को मतलब संभालें, बाहर किसी और रिवॉल्ट में ना जाए. Several steps were taken to minimize, if not completely eliminate, the capacity of Indian soldiers to eliminate a revolt. Firstly, the domination of army by its European branch was carefully guaranteed. The proportion of Europeans to Indians in the army was raised and fixed at 1 to 2 in the Bengal army and 2 to 5 in the Madras and Bombay army. Moreover, the European troops were kept in key geographical and military position. The crucial branches of the army like artillery and later in the 20th century tanks and armored corps were put exclusively in European hands. मतलब जो उनके अस्त्र गृह थे और वो सब यूरोपियन हैंड्स को मतलब उनके सुपुर्द कर दिए गए. द ओल्डर पॉलिसी ऑफ एक्सक्लूडिंग इंडियंस फ्रॉम द ऑफिसर कॉर्प्स was strictly maintained. Again I repeat, the older policy of excluding Indians from the officer corps was strictly maintained. Till 1914, no Indian could rise higher than the rank of the Subedar. Secondly, the organization of Indian section of the army was based on the policy of balance and counterpoise or divide and rule. Means the organization of Indian section of the army was based on the policy of divide and rule, so as to prevent its change of uniting again in an anti-British uprising. Discrimination on the basis of caste, reason and religion was practiced in recruitment to the army. A fiction was created that Indians consisted of martial and non-martial classes. Soldiers from Awadh, Bihar, Central India and South India who had first had to British conquer India but had later taken part in the revolt of 1857 were declared to be non-martial. Means who had first helped the British conquer India but had later taken part in the revolt of 1857 were declared to be non-martial. They were no longer taken in the army on a large scale. On the other hand, Punjabis, Gorkhas, Pathans who had assisted in the suppression of the revolt were declared to be martial and were recruited in large numbers. मतलब वही जो पहले रिवॉल्ट जो 1857 के रिवॉल्ट में एक्टिव पार्टिसिपेशन जिनका था उनको इनने कम लिया और जो बाद जो सप्रेशन के टाइम पे जो सैनिक आए उनको इनने ज़्यादा नंबर में लिया. By 1875, half of the British Indian Army was recruited from Punjab. आधी सेना ब्रिटिश आर्मी में पंजाब की थी 1875 तक. In addition, Indian regiments were made a mixture of various castes and groups, which were so placed as to balance each other. Communal, caste, tribal, and regional loyalties were encouraged among the soldiers so that the sentiments of nationalism would not grow among them. For example, caste and communal companies were introduced in most regiments. Charles Wood, Secretary of State for India, wrote to the Viceroy Canning in 1861, I never wish to see again a great army very much the same in its feelings and prejudices and connections, confident in its strength, and so disposed to rise in the rebellion together. If one regiment mutinies, I should like to have the next regiment so alien that it would be ready to fire into it. Thus, the Indian army remained a purely mercenary force, means किराए के. Moreover, every effort was made to keep it separated from the life and thoughts of rest of the population. It was isolated from nationalist ideas by every possible means. Newspapers, journals, and nationalist publications were prevented from reaching the soldiers. But as we shall see later, all such efforts failed in the long run, and sections of the Indian Army played an important role in India's struggle for freedom. The Indian Army became in time a very costly military machine. In 1904, it absorbed nearly 52% of Indian revenues. This was because it served more than one purpose. India, being the most prized colonial possession of the time, had to be constantly defended from the competing imperialism of Russia, France, and Germany. This led to the big increase in the size of Indian army. Secondly, the Indian troops were not maintained for India's defense alone. The Indian army was the chief instrument for the expansion and consolidation of British power and possession in Asia and Africa. So we can say that the Britishers use as an instrument the Indian army for the capturing the area or positions in the Asia and Africa also. Lastly, the British section of the army served as an army of occupation. It was the ultimate guarantee of the British hold over the country. Its cost had, however, been met by the Indian revenues. It was in fact a very heavy burden on them. Thank you.
Next, public service.
Okay. So we will discuss about the third point, that is public services. We have seen above that Indians had little control over the government of India. They were not permitted to play any part in making of laws or in determining administrative policies. In addition, they were excluded from the bureaucracy which put these policies into practice. All positions of power and responsibility in the administration were occupied by the members of Indian civil service, who were recruited through an annual open competitive exam held in London. Indians also could sit in this exam. Satyendranath Tagore, brother of Ravindranath Tagore, was the first Indian to do so successfully in 1863. Yes, I repeat, Satyendranath Tagore, brother of Ravindranath Tagore, was the first Indian to do so successfully in 1863. Means he became the first Indian civil servant uh, who uh, who gave exam in London and become a successful person in 1863. Almost every year thereafter, one or two Indians joined the coveted rank of the civil service, but their number was negligible compared with that of the English entrants. In practice, the doors of the civil service remained bare to the Indian, for they suffered from numerous handicaps. Competitive exams was held in the far away London. It was conducted through the medium of alien English language. It was based on classical Greek and Latin learning, which could be acquired only after a prolonged and costly course of studies in England. In addition, the maximum age of entry into the civil service was gradually reduced from 23 in 1859 to 19 in 1873. अब आप देख सकते हैं कि जैसे ब्रिटिशर्स कितनी क्रूशली और हार्शली अपनी ही पॉलिसी में इंडियंस को फंसा रहे थे कि जैसे कि इनने 1859 में 23 एज को 19 कर दिया इन 1878 में. If the young Indian of the 23 found it difficult to succeed in the civil service competition, the Indian of 19 found it almost impossible to do so. So, in other departments of administration, police, public works, medicine, post and telegraphs, forest, engineering, customs, and later railways, the superior and highly paid posts were likewise reserved for British citizens. This preponderance of Europeans in all strategic posts was not accidental. The rulers of India believed it to be an essential condition for the maintenance of British supremacy in India. Thus, Lord Kimberley, Secretary of State, laid down in 1893 that it is indispensable that an adequate number of members of the civil service shall always be European. And the Viceroy, Lord Lansdowne, stressed the absolute necessity of keeping the government of this widespread empire in European hands if that empire is to be maintained. Under Indian pressure, the different administrative services were gradually Indianized after 1918. Yes, I repeat. Under Indian pressure, the different administrative services were gradually Indianized after 1918, but the positions of control and authority were still kept in the British hands. Moreover, the people soon discovered that Indianization of these services had not put any part of political power in their hands. The Indians in these services functioned as agents of British rule and loyally served British imperial purposes. Thank you. So now we will discuss about relations with the princely states. The revolt of 1857 led the British to reverse their policy towards the Indian states. उन्होंने अपनी पॉलिसी को उल्टा कर दिया. Before 1857, they had availed themselves of every opportunity to annex princely state. This policy was now abandoned. अब उसे बंद कर दिया. Most of the Indian princes had not only remained loyal to British but had actively aided the latter to suppressing the revolt. As Lord Canning, the viceroy, put it, they had acted as breakwater in the storm. Their loyalty was now rewarded with the announcement that their right to adopt heirs would be respected and the integrity of their territory guaranteed against future annexation. Moreover, the experience of revolt had convinced the British authority. Again, I repeat, moreover, the experiences of the revolt had convinced the British authorities that the princely state could serve as useful allies and supporters in case of popular opposition or revolt. So, Canning wrote in 1860, "It was long ago said by Sir John Malcolm that if we made all India into jillas or district, it was not in the nature of things that our empire should last 50 years, but that if we could keep up a number of native states without political power but as a royal instrument, we should exist in India as long as our noble supremacy was maintained." Of the substantial truth of this opinion, I have no doubt, and the recent events have made it more deserving of our attention than ever. So, it was therefore decided to use the princely estates as firm props of British rule in India. As the British historian P.E. Roberts remarked, to preserve them as a bulwark, means bulwark of the empire has ever since been a principle of British policy. मतलब उन्होंने जो रूलर्स थे उनको एक तरीके से एक मोहरा बना के रखा. Their perpetuation was, however, only one set of British policy towards the princely states. The other was their complete subordination to the British authorities. While even before the revolt of 1857, the British had in practice interfered in the internal affairs of these states. In theory, they had been considered as subsidiary but sovereign powers. This position was now entirely changed. मतलब जो पहले वो क्या करते थे, इंटरफेयर करते थे उनके इंटरनल अफेयर्स में, वो अब चेंज कर दिया. एज द price of their continued existence, the princes were made to acknowledge Britain as a paramount power. In 1876, Queen Victoria assumed the title of the Empress of India to emphasize British sovereignty over the entire Indian subcontinent. Lord Curzon later made it clear that the princes ruled their state merely as agents of the British crown. लॉर्ड कर्जन ने कहा कि जो रूलर्स हैं और जो प्रिंसेस हैं वो एक तरीके से एजेंट्स की तरह काम कर रहे हैं अंडर द ब्रिटिश क्राउन. द प्रिंसेस एक्सेप्टेड दिस सबऑर्डिनेट पोजीशन एंड willingly become junior partners of the empire because they were assured of their continued existence as rulers of their state. As the paramount power, the British claimed the right to supervise the internal government of the princely state. They not only interfered in the day-to-day administration through the residents, but insisted on appointing and dismissing ministers and other high officials. Sometimes the rulers themselves were removed or deprived of their powers. कुछ कभी कभी तो रूलर्स को ही हटा दिया गया था. One motive for such interference was provided by the British desire to give these states a modern administration so that their integration with British India would be complete. This integration and the conquest continued interference were also encouraged by the development of all Indian railways, postal and telegraph systems, currency, and a common economic life. Another motive for interference was provided by the growth of popular, democratic, and nationalist movement in many of the states. On the one hand, the British authorities helped the rulers suppress these movements. On the other, they tried to eliminate the most serious of administrative abuse in these states. Thank you.